Hello everyone, how are you? I hope everybody's doing well. This is yours truly, Triple G, coming at you once again with another episode of whatever this series should still be named. So if you have a suggestion for what the show should be called, please send me an idea. Alright, so if you want to be featured in this weekly series, which I'm struggling and trying to post every Sunday, please send your submission to admin@guitargearguy.com. Any photos should be in landscape mode as high resolution as possible. You could send me also a video of you playing one of your guitars or showcasing your amp, whatever. Make sure that's a 1080p and 10 seconds or less. Alright, so this week's submission comes from John. John is a Seattle. John, if I didn't get any of these right, please correct me if I'm wrong. John is a Seattle native and is now living in Malaysia, which coincidentally, this is a second entry from Malaysia in last 4 episodes. Which again is great because you get to see what kind of guitars are available and popular and owned outside of the US, which is great. So anyhow, so John is a Seattle native who now is in Malaysia. John looks like he's a professional photographer. I've seen some of his photo work and they are just out of control, just really great. And John also is a I find a lot of things in common with John in terms of how to go about acquiring guitars. So you guys have seen my guitars. I don't necessarily collect guitars that are collectible. So 52 Tellys or 59 Les Pauls. Largely because those are also financially very difficult to get because they're fucking expensive. I just collect guitars that I happen to like. Whether that has any collectible value or not, that's kind of besides the point. So John also shares that he's collecting guitars that he likes, not necessarily collectible guitars, because there appears to be no end if you pursue that direction. At the end of the day, you kind of need to go after what makes you happy, or what inspires you musically, like what we talked about last week with Eric. So with that, we'll go take a look at John's collection real quick, and we'll come back and wrap this episode up. Interesting looking pedal board here. Obviously, there is no right order to put things in. Commonly you put your time-based effect in certain place, modulation effect in certain place, and what have you. So it appears at least the bottom row goes right to left, which is commonly found on a lot of pedal boards. So the expression pedal begins the chain, then there's the Mesa Boogie Flux Drive, and then a Crunchbox Distortion, which I'm not familiar with. After that, interestingly, then there's the Tube Screamer from Ibanez, followed by Maxon Pro. I think that's a Super Metal Distortion. So then after that comes a Super Badass from MXR, and then yet another metal distortion pedal from MXR, full bore metal at the end of the first row on the bottom row. So obviously all the distortion pedals are not going to be engaged all at once, is what I'm assuming, obviously. So John's probably picking and choosing which pedal to engage depending on the application that he's working with. And then on the top row, the what's juicing everything is a Big John power supply. I wonder if the name of the power supply played any role in him picking that particular one. And then there's a TC Electronics Flashback, a delay, which is a phenomenal delay pedal, by the way. I have one and it has so much versatility. You could dial in any sort of a delay setting, whatever it is that you are desiring. And then there is G Lab's dual reverb pedal. I'm not quite sure where exactly that's sitting in the chain. I can't tell whether the top row goes left to right or right to left. And then got the boost compressor from G Lab there as well on the top right. Normally we would see a compressor pedal at the very beginning of the chain, but maybe he has it at the end to squash down and squeeze the end result, kind of cleaning things up and boosting. So not quite sure the order, but a very interesting and cool looking pedal board. And looks like the base is a pedal train perhaps. Anyhow, so that wraps up his pedal board. Looking at John's amp arsenal, we start with the orange Dark Terror, which a lot of people think this is a one-trick pony, but I kind of beg to differ. Dark Terror is going to provide all kinds of just dirt and grit and just rocking tone. Also happens to be John's very first tube amp he shares with me. And directly under that, you see Ibanez's Tube Screamer amp. This was announced, about 3-4 years ago? So John shares with me, he acquired it pretty cheap, but the clean channel on that is phenomenal, is what he's saying. I personally don't have any experience here with that particular amp. I do remember it being announced, and there you go. And then on the bottom, cabinet-wise, it looks like a PPC 1x12. Again, those are orange cabs, which I also have a 2x12 of this. The thick, the chassis, I forget what wood that is made out of, but it just reverberates differently. There's such a unique tone that's being delivered through that cab. Nice one. And of course, you must have a Fender Deluxe Reverb in your amp arsenal. Starting off John's guitar collection, we will start with this beauty, ESP Eclipse. I'm gonna assume that's either EMG 8160 or 8185 combination. Look at that quilt maple top on that guitar. This is a very special guitar to John. He shares it with me because this was a present from his wife, I believe. Diane, I think that's John's wife's name, which I came across on Facebook. Looking just gorgeous, spectacular. I'm gonna assume the Japanese craftsmanship on that guitar is just phenomenal. Probably paired that, earlier we saw his pedal board, so that guitar feeding through something like the MXR full bore metal is just gonna rock this dump to no end, right? Great guitar. Little jealous. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of Edwards branded guitar, which is put out by ESP. So Edwards is a brand that they use for putting out guitars that's slightly more affordable than ESP guitars out in like the Asian countries. So here we're looking at John's Edwards single cut, obviously inspired by Les Paul, and gold top, and just great. I got a couple of Edwards Les Pauls in my collection, and I'm just gonna assume that's equal quality, if not better, and just looks really sweet, and definitely bang for the buck. Right, well represented in that guitar. To the right, we're looking at John's USA Standard Strat, just plain, and he felt he has to have a classic Strat that's made in the USA. So when one became available in his local guitar shop, he just had to grab it, obviously. John reports back the sound is amazing and just classic Fender. Like we talked about from Zach's submission from episode 1, things that are readily available to us here in the States may not necessarily be available as easily out in other countries. Also, obviously in different price points. So that's a great looking Strat. Love the burst and I'm sure it goes super well with that Fender Reverb Deluxe we saw earlier in the amp collection. Just like any guitar aficionado, John felt that he has to have a Les Paul in his collection, and what a fine choice he made. This is a Gibson Les Paul Traditional Pro 2. So this is the one that replaced the two that I have. I have the original Les Paul Traditional Pro when they were first announced. This model came the following year, so it has the figured maple top, looking really, really sweet. John says the tone is just explosive and seductive. That's a word that we don't hear every day on Guitar Tone. But the weight is sometimes a little too heavy. Les Pauls come light, heavy, depending on the day, week, month, you get slight inconsistency. But nonetheless, that is a sweet looking Les Paul. Congrats. So if we pin down John, he will say this is his best cherished guitar out in his collection. This is 1951 Nocaster Closet Classic. Oh, I see. Okay, so now I'm a colorblind, so I don't necessarily see the pink in the body, but my kids tell me that that's looking really sweet. So if you're into telly, this is like as good as that's gonna get. Looking really, really sweet. Loving that. I love that it is pink, and that's just awesome. What can I say? John loves telly, and he's got a really great looking one. Congrats. This next guitar speaks directly to my heart. This is a 2008 Charvel SoCal. So he was in Hong Kong, went into a guitar shop just out of whatever, and then there was this Charvel SoCal. It was made in USA. He had to take it. It was right around that time, 2008, 9, 2010, maybe even 2011, when Charvel was producing the SoCals and Sandimas, whatnot, out of their U.S. factory. I got one, and I have one in, what color do I have? Ferrari red, right? So he's obviously, John found one in the same collection, just looking really sweet. I think this is actually the one that shares the same spec as mine, the DiMarzio pickups, and the guitar does not come with a tone knob, just the volume control. This guitar is just absolutely shredderific. It's just rocking tone, easy to play, just fits like gloves. Awesome guitar. So between the Fenders and the Gibsons, the Les Pauls and Strats and Nocaster or whatnot, he's got his grounds covered with the shredders and the Eclipse that we saw earlier. Just John's collection is just awesome. He's got everything he needs and nothing he doesn't need. Another guitar that demonstrates the motto to not be fooled by what it says on the headstock, right? So this is a Squier Strat. He's got this guitar really cheap, he says, but and he had all the parts to upgrade the guitar, so he picked it up cheap when it was available. On the bridge, you see the Seymour Duncan hot rails and then vintage rails in the neck position. So the tone, it's going to have a great tone, and with the humbucker, there's not going to be that stupid hum that we're aware of. Just great. I mean, when you part out another guitar, you save and you upgrade another great find like this. It's what makes the whole guitar collecting fun, and each guitar being unique in your own collection. Just loving that, and I love that color too. I also had a Squier Strat just like in that color before. At some point, I did modify it also with a different pickup set and the guard and whatnot. I did end up selling that guitar, but just really nice. I guess I miss my guitar. Okay, so now we've taken a look at John's collection. That is a just sweet group of stuff that he's got, right down to all the amps. Just really loving what he's got going. All right, so with that will wrap up this episode, and please send me more if you want to be featured on this series, as I am now kind of running low on inventory of submissions that you guys have sent in so far. So that's about it. I've been Triple G. You've been sexy. Until next time, take care.